The sages record a very interesting conversation that took place between God and Moshe, at the beginning of this week's Torah portion. God told Moshe to write the opening words, Vayikra Moshe, and Moshe balked. He didn't want to write them, because that phrase suggests that God called out to Moshe like he would call out to a close friend. And Moshe, in his vast humility, was uncomfortable writing it that way. He asked God, could I just take off the last letter of the first word so that I will read instead Vayikar Moshe, that God chanced upon Moshe, the way it later describes God's meeting with the prophet Balaam? And God said in response something along the lines of, no go, Mo, write it the way I dictated it. So Moshe said, okay, I'll include the aleph, of course, because you said so. But can I make the aleph smaller? And God said, yes, that you can do. And so to this day, if you look in the Torah, you'll see that the first word in this week's Torah portion has an aleph at the end that's smaller than the other letters in the word. We see that even while writing the Torah up in heaven with God, Moshe was still working on his humility. But I ask you the following. If you're trying to be inconspicuous about something, why do it in a way that draws even more attention to what's going on?
God, it is flawless.
Wait, you changed your name to McLovin? What kind of a stupid name is that, Fogel?
They let you pick any name you want when you get down there.
Why don't you pick a common name like a normal person? It doesn't even have a first name. It just says McLovin. What? This ID says you're 25 years old. Why wouldn't you just put 21, man?
Seth. Every day, hundreds of kids go into the liquor store with their fake IDs, and every single one says they're 21. How many 21-year-olds do you think there are in this town? It's called strategy, all right? I am McLovin.
And so back in our story, why didn't Moshe just leave it as is? Write the aleph after God told him to, and realize that people won't notice it most of the time. By making the aleph smaller, he all but guaranteed that there'd be more discussion, not less discussion about this. So why did he do that? Perhaps the answer is that Moshe wasn't worried about us as the audience. He was worried about himself. He realized that every time in the future when he studied that Torah portion and he got to the words Vayikra Moshe and he'd see that God called out to him like he did to a friend, he might feel really good about himself. Yeah, that's right. Me and God, we're really tight. And so he wrote the aleph small to remind himself, don't get too big for your britches, even at the cost of drawing more attention to the back and forth. Or maybe the answer's diametrically the opposite. Maybe he was worried about us. Maybe he realized, myself, I don't want to write it that way. I'd rather it says Vayikar. But God said, no, write it that way. I want everyone to know that I had that type of close relationship with you. So maybe Moshe said, you know what? In that case, I'll take one for the team. I'll offer to God to write it in a way that draws even more attention to it. So people will see, more people will see that I had that type of relationship with God. So that they'll realize the level to which a human being can reach. Like Rashi says in last week's Torah portion, the people would see Moshe going into his tent to talk to God, and they'd say, how fortunate is someone who's a human being and is able to talk to God. Or later times in the Torah when someone would ask Moshe a question, and he'd say to them, you know what, wait right here. I'm going to go ask God. I'll be right back. Seriously? That is unbelievable. Maybe Moshe wanted to remind us that although we won't be able to achieve the bilateral relationship that he did, on-demand conversations back and forth with God, but all of us, at any time, have the ability to achieve a unilateral, on-demand relationship. Because when we pray to God, he's listening. We're talking to him. That's why it's so important to concentrate rather than daydreaming while we're praying. It's so important to say what we mean, to mean what we say, and to say it with meaning.